Hello and welcome to Learn with Indrjeet. This is another video in the series of videos titled Building a To-Do Management System Application in the latest .NET 8 framework from Microsoft. In the previous video, in the application project, we created the generic service for all the CRUD operations that we'll perform on different models. If you haven't watched that video, please go ahead and watch that first. In this video, we are going to create a to-do group service in the application project, and we'll also implement the IDataService interface. So let's get started. So here we are in Visual Studio. Let's go to the application project, and in the interfaces folder, let's add a new interface for to-do groups service. Let's make it public. In this video, we will be able to understand why we created the generic service. Okay, so let's inherit it from iService, the generic one, that is a generic for to-do groups now. To-do group, the DTO, to-do groups DTO, and the to-do group VM. Okay, right, and let's declare a method which will return a task of to-do group VM. The name will be get duplicate, as we had in the repository, if you remember that. If you haven't watched the previous videos, please go ahead and watch them also, so you get to know we created a function in the to-do groups repository with the name get duplicate, right? So it will accept to-do group DTO. Let's name that DTO only, and a semicolon. Save. Okay, so our to-do groups service interface is ready. Now let's implement this interface in the services folder. So let's add a new item called to-do groups service. So it will be a service for to-do groups. Add. Now let's inherit it from the generic service first of all. Generic service of to-do group DTO, and to-do group VM. Also, let's inherit it from the interface that we just created, the to-do group service interface. Okay, so let's say what this first squiggly line is saying. It is saying generate a constructor for this class with unit of work, mapper, and repository. Why so? Because the unit of work, the mapper, and the repository, these dependencies have to be passed to the base class, right? And the base class is the generic service. Let me take you there. So this generic service will take a repository, generic repository of T model. So when we are talking about to-do group service, it will accept a repository of type generic repository of to-do groups. Okay, now so we have created a constructor and passed all the dependencies to the base class. Now let's implement the to-do groups service interface. So this is the get duplicate, and let's start implementing this. So if the DTO is null, simply return null. Okay, otherwise get the model using the mapper. Mapper from the base class. Yes, mapper dot map, not to the VM, just to the model. Okay, so now where we will try to get the matching model from the repository. So await. Before that, let's put in async over here. Await underscore repository dot get duplicate, not the repository, we need to use the unit of work and then the repository. So the unit of work dot to do groups repository dot get duplicate using this model. Okay, so if the matching model is null, just return null, otherwise get a VM from the mapper using the matching model, just convert it to, just map it to the view model and then return the view model. Okay, so return the VM. That's it. Okay, so one benefit of creating a generic service is that we don't need to implement all the get the functions that are already implemented in here. So we will not be needing to implement this get by id, create, update, delete, update, create range, update range, delete range. So we will not have to implement these functions in each and every of the subsequent services. That is one benefit of making a generic service. So we'll have to implement only the extra functionality that we want to do. So I have just taken an example of get duplicate function just to make you understand the use of this generic service. Okay, this is the same concept that we used in the generic repository. So if we implemented the get by id, create, update, delete functions in this generic repo, we don't have to implement any of those in the specific repositories. Okay, so we need to implement only the required functionality over here. So the same way, the generic service and the to do group service. Now, just as we implemented the unit of work in the repository, let's implement the IDataService and the data service in here in the application project. Okay, so in the interface, just go ahead, add a new item called IDataService, make it public, and define a I to do groups service in here. Okay, Control K E, save, and now let's implement this data service. So data service public, inherit from IDataService like so, and let's take help from the bulb. Okay, implement the interface. So it will give us the public, this is this to do group service because it is defined there. So let's say it is only a get, and that's it. Okay, so let's have our dependencies over here. So private read only I unit of work, again I unit of work, and control D for the I mapper. Okay, I mapper underscore. Okay, fine. The constructor, let's have the constructor down below. So CTOR, this is the constructor. We'll have to put in the dependencies over here. So let's initialize. Normally I do it this way. I copy paste that and just remove the underscore, and then this one, paste and remove the underscore. Also, we will require a I repository of type to-do groups in the constructor itself, but we'll do that later. So let's refactor this a bit. Fine. And now underscore unit of work will be equal to unit of work, underscore mapper will be equal to the mapper, and the to-do groups service will be equal to new to-do group service. Control Shift space will show you the parameter information. So it requires a unit of work that we already have. It requires a mapper that we have, but it requires a I repository of to-do group that we are not having here. So let's inject that also. So I repository of type to-do group, and let's name it repository. Okay, not the repository, it will be conflicting name. So to-do group repo. Okay, that is okay, that's fine. Now let's pass it to the constructor of the to-do group service. So underscore unit of work, the mapper, and the to-do groups repo. So for rest of the models that we'll create in future, like for to-do list, this line, this space will keep on filling up, and also this one. Okay, we'll keep on injecting the different repositories, and then we'll keep on passing that, right? So in this video we have implemented the to-do groups service as well as the data service. I hope you understand the concept of why we created the generic service over here, right? So if you like the content of this video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel, and also please communicate with me in the comments if you have any queries or questions related to the concept. Thank you for your time. Keep learning.